Hello and welcome to another edition of The Second Look from the Anfield wrap after Liverpool have beaten Porto by 2-0 at Anfield. Crucial first leg victory. It might have felt a bit like a bit of a relief from the pressure of the Premier League title race, but Liverpool mean business in the European Cup as well this season. I am Dan Austin. I've got with me Mo Stewart and Ian Ryan is on the end there. We're going to talk about the match and Ian, firstly, it's another massive game one. It's still a fantasy at this stage to think about the League and European Cup double, but they're doing their best to make it reality.
Absolutely, and I think you're right to say it did feel like a bit of a relief. I guess it maybe felt the same for the players as well, not having quite the same pressure. Don't get me wrong, we touched on it in the preview before the game, that this is still a huge football match. And fair play, I said to Neil Atkinson before we started this, I'd have taken 2-0 all day long. You know, I think there was opportunities there maybe for Liverpool to go into that second leg with a much bigger lead, a much bigger advantage, but 2-0, first leg, European Cup final. European Cup quarter-final, take it all day long.
Well, as Ian says, it could have been more. Liverpool had the chances to do it. Liverpool had the control to do it because I think what was clear throughout the match was that Liverpool were constantly comfortable. They were in total control of a latter stage European Cup tie, and that doesn't happen. No. At this stage, the teams are evenly matched. These are the best teams in the world. The game should be more even than this. And Porto did all right, don't get me wrong, Porto are a good team, but Liverpool constantly held them at arm's length, didn't allow them any space in the middle, restricted them to very few chances, no real proper ones that they would feel like they should have scored. And it's at the point now where if you're doing that on a regular basis, if you're able to do that in a quarter-final stage of the European Cup, you are one of the best teams in Europe and therefore the world.
Definitely. And like Ian said, it was almost a relief for it to be calmer, but that's six wins on the bounce now, all competitions. And it's coming at a really good time in the season, the time where every game becomes really important. And it's also kind of weird when you think about the relaxing idea of this being a break. This is knockout football. It's normally meant to be a knife edge every game, whereas we feel like that way in the league, and this is kind of the break. But that shows the level that we're operating on week in, week out, it seems, at the moment. And you're right. I think you look at the Porto team and you think that this is a game we should be able to go into it with confidence, knowing we're the favourites, control it, do what we need to do, get out and prepare for the next game. And I think that's exactly what we did.
So how does it feel the day after then, Mo? Because obviously, you know, when it goes 2-0 after 25 minutes, I'm sat there thinking, this is going to be 3, maybe 4, we're going to kill it tonight. They don't end up doing that. They're still in a very commanding position going into the second leg, but do you feel, you know, Ian says he's perfectly happy with 2-0, would have taken it beforehand. I think we can all agree with that sentiment, certainly, but do you still feel satisfied with it? Do you sort of wish that they just put it to bed? What you'd override and think?
I mean, obviously, the carrot of putting it to bed completely, scoring 3, 4 and 5, is that the second leg means that we can rotate a little bit easier. We can look to maybe rest some other people with regards to the league running, and that's not the case for this game. But we are still in a very comfortable position. We're in a position from which we should win, and history says that when we are in this position, we do go on to win, and I think that would be the case again.
Ian, it was a very different victory from ones that we've seen recently, and you know, all the recent ones in the league have been real knife-edge stuff, you know, like winners coming from behind, you know, conceding a goal and then having to score like penalty like a Fulham. Do you think it was nice to have the shift and have something done after sort of 20-25 minutes, even if the tie wasn't won, the game was?
Nice for me, mate. Yeah, I mean, I think we've all been saying, haven't we, it'd be nice to just have 2-0. And then,
I haven't been saying that. I want the bedlam. I want the insanity.
I mean, the bedlam's nice to have sometimes, but I think if you're having constant bedlam, it is. I said the other day, it's heart attack here. And I think, you know, to go 2-0 up comfortably, I don't know if I think Porto, I mean, there was the odd chance. I think, you know, Alisson makes a really good save first half where they get in behind Trent and Lovren. And I think their threat was coming from that side. You know, they're looking to drop balls in over Lovren's head or play in between the centre half and the full back. And you know, you see teams, you know, opt for that quite a lot. You know, you've got to attack somewhere. I think we always say that. And I think, you know, that right hand side of Liverpool is where maybe teams see a small weakness. But I'm just thinking, you know, Mo's right. You could go into the second leg and be 3-4 up and be able to rotate. But actually, I think we've seen it where this Liverpool team, they like to play in rhythm. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that we go again and the focus is really, really strong and we have to go over there and take it very, very seriously, which we will do. So, more than happy with it. It's just great to be involved in 2 big competitions at the real kind of business end of the season. So absolutely superb from the boys.
Right, so we're going to come on to talk about individuals, and the first one that I want to pick out is Naby Keita. Brought in from the cold for the Southampton game, finally gets his first Liverpool goal, gets another start last night, and for me he was man of the match. I've got some statistics on his performance there. He did 8 tackles, which is 5 more than any other Liverpool player. Eder Militao of Porto had 6. He was the only one within 5 of Naby Keita. Keita also made 2 key passes. Only Jordan Henderson had more. He had an 86% successful pass rate. Only Liverpool centre-backs had more. He got another goal, Ian. It's another fortunate one. But he looks to me now, after the period where he was inconsistent, he was in and out the side, he looks like he means serious business for the running now. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we touched on it the other day. That goal against Southampton, you just see the huge almost kind of release, isn't it, really, where the pressure's off a little bit. He gets that goal, he's playing with confidence and without pressure. Last night I thought he was really, really good. Him and Henderson, first half, the 2 big standouts for me, really. You can see now he's demanding the ball. He wants it. He wants to kind of take it off the centre half, where maybe 3 or 4 months ago, because there'd been 1 or 2 performances that maybe weren't quite at the level you're hoping for, he was maybe a little bit reluctant to do that. And I'm not saying he was shying away, but you could just see the weight of the world was maybe on his shoulders a little bit, and that's not the case anymore. He gets the goal last night. Yes, it's a deflection. He won't care about that. We don't care about that. And now he looks like a real asset and a real kind of person you can go to for the run and say, right, if Naby's playing, everyone's all right with it now. Whereas, 3-4 weeks ago, there's a lot of questions around his performance, and I still think there's maybe 1 or 2 things he's got to work on. You see in the Southampton game, and even maybe a little bit last night, but not to the same extent, where maybe he loses players now and again. He can kind of run off the back of him a little bit, and he still thinks he's maybe got a little bit more time than he has. Yeah. But he will absolutely adjust to that. He'll find his way as far as that's concerned. But I was just made up with his overall performance. He's got that ability to do something different compared to the rest of the midfield. And as I say, if he starts at Chelsea on Sunday or starts at Anfield against Chelsea on Sunday, no one's got an issue with it.
Ian mentioned, Mo, about Jordan Henderson there. I thought he was fantastic again. Yeah. And this role higher up the pitch seems to be really suiting him down to the ground. Klopp said in the aftermath last night that it was his fault that Jordan Henderson hasn't been doing more work higher up the pitch. Obviously, it's because, Fabinho wasn't there previously. He was the best player in that role. We saw Emre Can try and do it on a number of occasions, and it just wasn't really happening for him. We had Henderson as that base player, and we didn't have anyone else. He was restricted in what he could do from an attacking sense. But last night, again, 3 key passes, a superb through ball for the one that eventually leads to Firmino's goal. And I feel like this is almost a sort of rebirth of him, which feels strange to say about your captain, because in theory he's your main man, but he's changing into not necessarily a new player, but a player that we've seen him be previously for Liverpool back in 13-14 or even earlier than that. And again, it feels like this new aspect of him could be such a boost in the running.
Oh, definitely. And I think personally, when I think back to the peak Henderson in terms of his Liverpool career, it was that guy who was able to break more for going forward and actually affect the game that way. The pass he gives strength for the second goal. I love so much about it. It's not so much the fact that he plays it inside the fullback, it's that he waits for the perfect time to play inside the fullback, just to make sure that no one else could go and cover over. And he was able to pull the strings in the way he does deeper, but from a further up vantage point, and it's definitely going to give us a bit more impetus. I'm pleased for him as well, because it's clear again that behind the scenes Klopp's said to him, look, I know you want to do this, but I need you to do this for the team, and he's gone out and he's done that. But he hasn't forgotten his own ambitions and how he feels most comfortable as a footballer. And so the idea that he's been unleashed on the end of the season to go and be that guy again, I think can only be good for us.
Right, that's it for part 1. We'll be back in a second talking about James Milner, Roberto Firmino and the way the Porto set up. But for now, Neil Atkinson has had a tactical look at the game and how it played out. So here's Neil.
FC Porto came to Liverpool and they played 5-2-3. Bit of a surprise if you go back through the Champions League history this season. They haven't played 5 at the back in any game. That obviously makes it clear that it was a Liverpool-specific formation that they came up with. It's also the same one that Tottenham faced up with us against, and to a certain extent Southampton. that was maybe a little bit more of a front two, but that's sort of the value of this. You've got these players here. Octavia can just sort of drop in and be around that sort of area if they want to, come into there, make that a midfield 3, and then it's a 2. Marega up top there, Tiquinho behind, and both played over on this side of the pitch, but it doesn't take much for them to stretch this way and get involved there, and then the shape goes that way, or even to go all the way to this, and then the shape becomes that as well, 5-4-1. It's the idea that you have the 5 and you have the 2. And then what the 2 players in front of them do dictate what the formation actually looks like. But it is interesting that it's another side that's come to Anfield and done something like this. From our point of view, you can see over here, Mane and Keita are really, really close together in terms of average position, of effectiveness throughout the game, and especially in the first 45 minutes. Henderson playing over here, pushed right up the pitch. What Paul on this side did for them, trying to target Lovren, trying to target Trent. Again, not dissimilar to Southampton, not dissimilar to Tottenham. But what that meant was this is where all the action was. And it would be fair to say that over the course of the game, and certainly in that first 45 minutes, Lovren, Trent, Henderson, Salah playing a little bit wider. They win their battles. Telios gets pinned repeatedly and run by Salah in behind. Fabinho comes over and helps out a little bit as well. But this Liverpool section here outplays this Porto section, even though that's where they want the game to take place. It was a tough game. We said beforehand they'd be good from set pieces. They were. We said they weren't mugs. They weren't. It had everything that we expected, really, but it also had a Liverpool 2-0 victory. And one of the takeaways will be that this is a Porto side that can hurt Liverpool, but they don't quite seem able, and they haven't shown at this stage, at least, they have a plan to hurt Liverpool consistently. That might be to come in the second leg, but it is very much advantage Liverpool.
Thanks very much to Neil there, as insightful as ever. And Mo, I want to talk about Roberto Firmino because he's been, I don't want to say maligned, but of the front 3, I think people have been most sort of surprised by him this season. And he scored less goals than what he would usually do. But he proved again last night that he scored in crucial ones. And for me, what's most interesting about it is it's his movement that makes the goal. It's very similar to the Tottenham one in that it's against a very good football team with very good defenders, and somehow he ends up completely on his own in the box. And the centre-backs don't know where he is. And to me, that is testament to the man's intelligence and speed of thought and movement that people just simply can't track him.
Yeah, and it's also a testament to the training pitch because it was a trigger. As soon as Henderson got the ball in that situation, Firmino knew exactly when he had to make his move off the back of when the ball was played. And it's almost like we forgot that so much of what is great about Bobby is not him putting the ball in the net and doing his fantastic celebrations. It's all of the other things that he does, his defensive work, his occupying the opposition defenders. Because Porto, they've got some good footballers in their defence, and the idea of them having time and space to pick passes and to build tempo, that would have been a big part of their game plan in trying to get forward. But he just didn't give him a minute's rest. And Mane, to a lesser but similar extent, he wasn't as much of a force going forward, but he knew that he could still affect the game from what he was doing. And that mentality that forwards don't often have, if you think about it, to say, look, okay, today's not going to be my day in front of goal, but I'll go out and do that, is really good. But like you say, Firmino got his reward as well.
Ian, we're going to have to talk about James Milner as well. He really is the ultimate utility man. You can just lash him in at any position, it seems like, and he'll just be one of the best players on the pitch by and large. He does a job at left back last night. He hasn't played there for a long time. He's been doing a bit at right full back. He played really well against Southampton. In this one, you know, we had a chat on the preview the other day. I was touting Alberto Moreno for a start. I did think that we missed a bit of the attacking edge. I think there were a few times where people were playing balls in down the left and expecting Andy Robertson to whip a ball in and then realising, oh, it's Millie, he's going to cut back in on his right. But he defended, his defending was spot on. He was a threat going forward, if not quite the same as Robertson. It's just brilliant to have someone that you can drop in and totally rely on no matter where he is on the pitch.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, it's testament to him that the manager always looks to get him in the team somewhere. He wants him on that pitch, and you wouldn't be surprised to see him turn up even at right back against Chelsea, for instance, on Sunday, because he just wants him in that side, all the experience he brings, but he's a really good footballer as well. You're right to reference the fact that he does get down the left-hand side a couple of times, and he ends up floating a couple in, which is quite easy for Casillas to take, because he hasn't got that whip of a left foot that Robbo's got. But from a defensive point of view, he gives you all the solidity you want. He's so switched on. And you see, I mean, he's got loads and loads of communication. He never, ever stops talking as well, which is, again, you know, probably one of the reasons why the manager always wants him on the pitch. But a really, really good performance. And I think, you know, coming up to some really, really big league games, the manager will have a decision about what he does with James Milner. But as I say, you wouldn't be surprised to see him pop up at right back against Chelsea if he feels that maybe Trent needs a little bit of a rest. Because I think if there was not necessarily a negative to last night, but I think, Trent, albeit he gets the assist for Bobby Firmino, I thought he struggled at times, and I think, on the back of the game against Southampton, that was 2 poor performances. I'm a huge Trent fan, and I always come back to the fact that he's 20 years of age, and you've got to take that into account. And what he's doing at that age is nothing short of phenomenal, to be honest, and he's appeared in some huge football matches. But maybe the manager looks at it and thinks it's time to maybe take Trent out.
Gomez is the interesting one though, isn't he?
Gomez.
Because we weren't expecting to see him on the bench. I think Klopp mentioned that part of that was Moreno wasn't fit for the bench, so he went with Gomez. But I mean, if he's that close, if he's close to fitness enough to be on the bench, then surely he's close enough to be on the pitch. But again, with it being Chelsea, you wonder, is it too big a game to come back for?
Possibly. I felt the manager overall last night got his selection spot on again. I felt he'd go with Lovren. We talked about it on the preview show. I think it made loads and loads of sense to try and get minutes into Lovren ahead of 4 or 5 really big league games. Obviously a potential semi-final coming up. It's no kind of reflection on Matip really. I think his performances have been more than decent at times. He still worries me a little bit. But I thought it made loads of sense to give Lovren minutes, and you don't know what's going to happen on Sunday. If Matip was to suddenly come off with an injury, you want to make sure Lovren's had minutes, and he now has. And actually, I thought, even though Porto looked to maybe the right-hand side, Trent and Lovren to get him behind, I thought overall, apart from the odd occasion where he got caught under it, I think once, Lovren did pretty well last night.
Porto did play well, and I think it's important that we consider them because the tie is by no means over. Liverpool are totally in control of it, but it's only a 2-goal margin. They've got the home game to come. I thought that, especially defensively, they did well. I thought that Eder Militao and Felipe did really quite well. They were strong. Casillas played quite well as well. He came for an awful lot of crosses that were towards the edge of his box. He calmed them down a lot. They countered well at times, even if they didn't make loads of chances. Sergio Conceição, their manager, got them on the pitch at the end after full time. After our players had exited the pitch, they all went over to their supporters, had a clap, and then they all got in a really big huddle and had a 2 or 3 minute chat, which I thought was interesting because they will think, we're talking about we're happy with the result, would have taken it before kick-off. On 25, if you offer them 2-0, they're frankly delighted. Yeah. So they will have been saying in that huddle, we're really in this. We can get them back at home and we can do it there.
No, definitely that's going to be their game plan. And obviously, part of their game plan would have been getting an away goal. I think we were the first people to stop them scoring away from home in Europe. And you could tell by the way they were set up. They were defensively sound, but they also knew how they were going to attack us. So they had an offensive game plan. A better one than Bayern Munich did, by the way.
Definitely.
So from their perspective, yes, they'll be disappointed they didn't get the away goal, but they know how good they are at home. And they generally do tend to play up in those situations. They'll think that they've got a chance. But obviously, in the back of their mind, in the back of our mind, in the back of everyone's mind, is the fact that the last time we played there, we won 5-0.
Ian, Musa Marega, in advance of this game, had scored 6 in his last 6 Champions League matches. He had 5 shots last night. None of them were brilliant chances by any stretch. Alisson made a couple of smart saves, especially first half, from a couple of the efforts that he had. But I think what's different between this tie and the tie last season is that they have got a clear goal threat, and we've seen it already. Although it wasn't one where they had us penned back and they were making loads of chances and they were desperately unlucky not to score. We've seen that fella can get in behind us. We've seen that he's a handful, that he's lively. So we have to be aware of that going to Portugal next week. No,
absolutely. He offers a physical threat, and I think he's better than 1 and 2 in the Portuguese league. So you've got to take that seriously. I thought actually, there were a number of occasions where he did manage to kind of get him behind, and he doesn't necessarily kind of get into areas where you ever felt there was a huge threat. He gets a couple of shots off, and I think second half Alisson handles one fairly routinely. But no doubt he did cause us a couple of problems last night, and I think you've got to take them seriously over there. I think going over there next week, if Liverpool get the first goal, then it really does kill the tie. Then Porto, it's really none of their business in terms of that second leg. And I think that will be all about Liverpool going into that game, right mentality, not being complacent. Yes, we went and spanked them 5-0, but I don't think we can expect anything like that this time. They look a little bit more of a solid unit, I think. I was quite impressed with Porto at times last night. I don't think they kind of really ever truly threatened, but Mo's right to kind of point to their game plan. I never thought they ever looked like they're going to be on the end of a spanking. And actually, maybe some of that was down to the fact that Liverpool didn't go pushing too much for that 3rd and 4th goal. I think there was an element of managing our output, I suppose, with some big games coming up. Even though there's maybe 5 days before Chelsea, I still think you could even look at it from the manager's substitutions. He never really went pushing for that 3rd. I think everyone was, when it got to 60 minutes, everyone was pretty much happy with 2-0.
And Mo, do you think that Liverpool go to Portugal next week and just think, right, we're going to let you play, you can do whatever you want, you can have a lot of the ball if you want, we're going to play on the counter, we're going to score first, or we're at least going to get one, and that's going to make it impossible for you?
I mean, it's interesting because I still think that Klopp feels more comfortable with his team when we have most of the ball. And I think that they'll probably still want to have most of the ball. But in terms of how much attacking we do and how heavy we go on the attack, particularly in the team selection, I don't think we need to. I think that if we just play a normal game of football over the course of 90 minutes, we'll score a goal. And if we score a goal, they need to score 4. And I think that's all we really need to do. I think that we can be prepared for an onslaught, but if it doesn't come, then we can be like, okay, we'll go off and do our football.
I think it's difficult for Porto because there'll be a team who are used to having the ball in their own league, and all of a sudden last night they're spending an awful lot of time chasing Liverpool. And I thought if there was one regret, you're thinking, well, if Liverpool had pushed and pushed, he probably could have got a third, maybe even a fourth. But there's no doubt Porto at some point have got to gamble up in the second leg. They've got to make a decision where they try and get back into this football match. So when that happens, you'd imagine that's going to leave gaps, and Liverpool have got the players to exploit those gaps.
Right, that's about all that we've got time for this episode of The Second Look. Thank you to Ian and to Mo for joining me. It is so exciting to be supporting a football team that is seriously challenging for the 2 biggest honours in the game. And so far, they're winning all the matches. They're on the way to doing it. So I hope you're having a fantastic time watching Liverpool, going the games, whatever you're doing, however you are enjoying being a Liverpool fan at the minute. I hope it's a brilliant laugh for you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Second Look. There's loads more on the YouTube channel. There's a Talking Reds from this morning, as there is every day. There'll be a review podcast which will go out on the Anfield App's Tour Player service, which will be like an in-depth tactical look at the game last night. Loads of build up to Chelsea to come as well. So if you don't already, make sure to go to theanfieldwrap.com/subscribe. Get onto the Tour Play service. It's going to be brilliant. It's the best time to do it. Liverpool are the best team in the world. Up the Reds.